Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair on the bridge of the spaceship Horizon's Edge. The stars outside looked the same as they had for weeks. His crew was getting bored with their long patrol mission in the outer rim of the Kepler system. Nothing ever happened out here. "Captain," called Lisa Park from her science station. "I'm picking up something strange on long-range sensors." Jake turned his chair toward her. "What kind of strange?" Lisa frowned at her screen. "It looks like a ship, but the design is nothing like ours. The materials are different too. I've never seen anything like it." "Show me," Jake said. The main screen filled with the image of a sleek vessel drifting in space. It was beautiful in a way that human ships were not. The hull seemed to flow like water, with smooth curves instead of hard angles. Strange lights pulsed along its surface in patterns that hurt to look at for too long. "Any life signs?" Jake asked. "Yes, sir. But they're weird readings. Not human, that's for sure." Communications Officer Amy Chen looked up from her station. "Captain, I'm getting a weak distress signal from that ship. It's not in any language I know, but the pattern suggests they need help." Jake stood up and walked closer to the screen. The alien ship was damaged. He could see scorch marks along one side and what looked like holes in the hull. "Ryan," he called to the medical officer, "get your gear ready. We might have injured aliens on that ship." Dr. Ryan Clark nodded and headed for the medical bay. Jake turned to his security chief. "Ben, pick a team and get ready for a boarding mission. We don't know what we're walking into." Security Chief Ben Cooper selected 3 of his best people. They grabbed their gear and met Jake at the shuttle bay. Lisa Park came too, bringing her scanning equipment. The alien ship was even more beautiful up close. The shuttle docked with what looked like an airlock, though it opened in a way that seemed more grown than built. The air inside was breathable, which surprised everyone. They moved through corridors that curved and twisted like the inside of a seashell. The walls glowed with soft light that seemed to come from the material itself. Everything felt alive somehow. "This way," Lisa whispered, checking her scanner. "The life signs are coming from what looks like a main cabin." They found her in a room that might have been a bedroom or a medical bay. She lay on something that was part bed and part cocoon. Jake had never seen anything so beautiful in his life. Her skin looked like it was made of crystal, but it moved and breathed like flesh. It changed colors slowly, shifting from silver to pale blue to soft gold. Her hair was long and white, floating around her head like she was underwater. Even unconscious, she looked regal and important. "She's hurt," Ryan said, running his medical scanner over her. "Some kind of energy damage, but she's stable." Amy was working on a control panel nearby. "Captain, I think I can access their computer system. Give me a few minutes." Jake couldn't stop staring at the alien woman. She was clearly royalty of some kind. Her clothes were made of fabric that seemed to be woven from starlight. Jewels that he didn't recognize decorated her arms and neck. "Got something," Amy called out. "Their ship's log is in a weird format, but I'm getting pieces. This is a royal transport. She's a princess." "A princess," Jake repeated softly. "Princess Zarathiel of something called the Veltar Empire," Amy continued. "And Captain, she was running from something. The ship was sabotaged." Suddenly, the princess's eyes opened. They were the color of deep space, purple with flecks of silver like distant stars. She looked around the room in confusion until her gaze settled on Jake. She tried to sit up, but Ryan gently pushed her back down. "Easy there, Your Highness. You're hurt." She spoke in a voice like music, but they couldn't understand the words. Her language sounded like wind chimes and flowing water. She seemed scared and confused. "Amy, can you get the translator working?" Jake asked. "I'm trying, sir. Their language is completely different from anything in our database." The princess kept looking at Jake. There was something in her eyes that made him think she was trying to tell him something important. She reached out with one slender hand and touched his arm. Her skin felt warm despite looking like crystal. She spoke again, slower this time. Through gestures and her tone, they began to understand that she was grateful for their help. She pointed to herself and said Zarathiel several times until they realized it was her name. Jake pointed to himself. "Jake Morrison." She tried to repeat it, but their mouths were shaped differently, The sound came out as something like Jacques Morisson. Over the next hour, Ryan worked to heal her injuries, while Amy slowly made progress with the translation system. The princess watched everything with curious eyes, especially fascinated by their technology. When the basic translator finally came online, her first words were clear. "My ship was attacked. They tried to kill me." "Who?" Jake asked. "Those who would force me to marry for politics and power. I ran because I learned they planned to kill my family after the wedding." Jake felt anger rise in his chest. The idea of forcing this beautiful, intelligent woman into marriage against her will made him sick. "You're safe now," he told her. "No one will hurt you while you're on my ship." Princess Zarathiel looked into his eyes and seemed to see something there that convinced her he was telling the truth. For the first time since they found her, she smiled. It was like watching the sun rise. "You would protect me, even though I'm a stranger?" she asked. "That's what humans do," Jake said simply. "We help people who need help." She tilted her head, studying him with those amazing purple eyes. "Your people sound very different from mine." "Maybe that's not a bad thing," Jake replied. As they prepared to move her to the medical bay on Horizon's Edge, Jake made a decision that would change everything. Instead of immediately reporting to Earth Command as protocol demanded, he would give the princess time to recover and figure out what to do next. He didn't know it yet, but this choice would lead to the first real friendship between humans and an alien species. It would also lead to something much more personal between a starship captain and a runaway princess. But for now, Jake Morrison was just a man trying to do the right thing for someone who needed help. And Princess Zarathiel was grateful to be alive and free, even if she didn't know what would happen next. 3 days had passed since they rescued Princess Zarathiel from her damaged ship. She was recovering quickly in the medical bay, much faster than Dr. Ryan Clark had expected. Her crystal-like skin had returned to its normal silver glow, and the injuries were almost completely healed. Jake visited her every morning to check on her progress. Each time he found her asking Ryan dozens of questions about human medicine and biology. She was fascinated by everything about their species. "Your people heal much slower than mine," she said to Jake during one visit. "But your medicine is very clever. You use machines and chemicals instead of bioenergy like the Veltar." "Bioenergy?" Jake asked. She held up her hand and concentrated. Her palm began to glow with soft blue light. "My people learned long ago to work with living energy. We grow our ships instead of building them. We heal with light instead of surgery." Ryan leaned forward with interest. "Could you teach us some of these techniques?" "If you wish to learn, I will gladly share," Zarathiel said with a smile. "Your kindness has already given me more than I can repay." Later that day, Jake gave her a tour of the ship. Engineer Danny Foster showed her the engine room, explaining how human ships worked with fusion reactors and plasma drives. She listened carefully, asking smart questions that impressed everyone. "Your technology is so young," she said, "but you use it in ways we never thought of. The Veltar have had space travel for thousands of years, but we never went far from our home system. You humans have been in space for less than 200 years, but you explore everywhere." "We're curious," Jake explained, as they walked through the corridors. "Humans have always wanted to see what's over the next hill or across the next ocean, or around the next star," added navigator Kate Sullivan, who was showing Zarathiel the star charts in the navigation room. The princess studied the maps with wide eyes. "You have been to all these places? This ship has visited about half of them," Kate said proudly. "We're always finding new systems to explore." "Amazing," Zarathiel whispered. "The Veltar Empire controls 12 systems, and we thought that was vast." As the days passed, the princess spent time with different crew members, learning about human culture and sharing stories of her own people. She was particularly interested in how humans made decisions as a group. "You have something called democracy?" she asked Jake one evening in the ship's small dining area. "Yes. People vote to choose their leaders and make important decisions together. Even common people have a voice in government." "Everyone gets a vote," Jake confirmed. "Rich or poor, it doesn't matter. Zarathiel was quiet for a long moment. Among the Veltar, only the royal families and high nobles make decisions. The common people must obey whatever we decide for them. That doesn't seem fair, said Lisa Park, who was eating dinner with them. I never questioned it before, the princess admitted. It was simply how things had always been. But learning about your ways makes me think differently. She asked about human families next and was surprised to learn that people chose their own marriage partners. Parents don't arrange marriages for political gain? She asked. Sometimes they try to influence their children's choices, Jake said, but ultimately people marry for love, not politics. Love, she repeated the word like she was tasting something new. I have read about this emotion in your literature files, but I thought it was just stories. It's very real, Amy Chen said from across the table. I married my husband because I loved him, not because our families thought it was a good idea. That night, Jake found Zarathiel in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. She looked sad and thoughtful. Is everything all right? He asked, sitting beside her. I have been thinking about my life, she said softly. I was raised to believe that duty to my family and empire was the highest honor. Personal desires were selfish and unimportant. And now I wonder if there might be another way to live. Your crew members seem happy. They work together not because they are forced to, but because they choose to. They respect each other as equals. Jake watched her profile as she spoke. Even in the dim light of the observation deck, her skin glowed softly. Her beauty was so alien and yet so captivating that he sometimes forgot to listen to her words. She's the most splendid princess I've ever seen, he said quietly to Ryan, who had just entered the observation deck. Jake didn't realize that Zarathiel's hearing was much better than a human's. She heard every word clearly. When she turned to look at him, their eyes met across the room. For a moment, neither of them moved. Jake felt his heart beat faster as those purple eyes studied his face. There was something in her expression that hadn't been there before. Curiosity, maybe. Or recognition of something she was just beginning to understand. Thank you, she said, simply. But her voice carried more meaning than those two words should have held. Ryan cleared his throat awkwardly. Sorry to interrupt. Captain, we're getting some strange readings on long-range sensors. You might want to take a look. Jake reluctantly stood up. What kind of readings? Energy signatures that match the princess's ship, Ryan said. But much bigger. Zarathiel went very still. How many ships? At least 3, maybe more. They're still far away, but they're heading in our direction. The princess closed her eyes and took a deep breath. They found me. Who found you? Jake asked, though he was already afraid he knew the answer. Prince Kethmore and his supporters. They must have tracked my biosignature somehow. She stood up, and Jake could see fear in her eyes for the first time. Captain Morrison, you must leave me here and run. If they catch you helping me, they will destroy your ship. We're not abandoning you, Jake said firmly. You don't understand, she said, grabbing his arm. These are warships of the Veltar Empire. Your technology cannot match theirs. They will kill everyone on this ship just for helping me. Then we'll have to be smarter than they are, Jake said. Humans are good at that. He activated his communicator. All senior staff to the bridge immediately. We have a situation. As they walked toward the bridge, Zarathiel tried again to convince him to save his crew by abandoning her. I cannot let innocent people die because of my problems, she said. And we can't let innocent people be murdered by tyrants, Jake replied. That's not who we are. Even if it means war with my empire? Jake stopped walking and turned to face her. Princess, in the last few days you've become part of this crew. We don't abandon family. The word family seemed to hit her like a physical blow. She stared at him with wonder, as if he had just said something impossible. Family, she whispered. That's right. And we protect our family. For the first time since he had known her, Princess Zarathiel of the Veltar Empire looked like she might cry. But these weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of hope. On the bridge, the crew was already analyzing the approaching ships. The readings were not encouraging. 3 vessels, definitely Veltar design, Lisa reported. They're huge, Captain. Each one is at least 5 times the size of our ship. How long until they reach us? Jake asked. At their current speed, about 18 hours, Kate answered. Jake looked at his crew, then at the princess. Everyone was scared, but no one was suggesting they run. All right, people, Jake said. We've got 18 hours to figure out how to fight gods with slingshots. Let's get to work. Princess Zarathiel watched the humans begin planning their impossible defense, and for the first time in her life, she understood what love really meant. Not the romantic love from the stories, but something deeper. The love that made people risk everything for each other, even when they had only known each other for a few days. She had found a new family among the stars, and she would do anything to protect them. The Veltar warships arrived exactly when Kate had predicted. Jake watched them on the main screen and felt his stomach drop. The ships were massive and beautiful in a terrifying way. They looked more like living creatures than machines, with hulls that pulsed with organic light and weapon ports that opened like mouths full of teeth. My God, whispered Danny Foster. How do we fight those things? Princess Zarathiel stood beside Jake on the bridge, wearing a spare uniform that Amy had found for her. She looked small and fragile next to the image of the warships, but her voice was steady when she spoke. The largest ship belongs to Prince Kethmore, she said. The other 2 carry his personal guard and military supporters. Can we talk to them? Jake asked. They will demand my immediate surrender, Zarathiel replied. If you refuse, they will attack. As if hearing her words, the communication system crackled to life. The alien voice that came through was cold and commanding, speaking in the musical language of the Veltar. What is he saying? Jake asked. Zarathiel translated with a grim expression. Prince Kethmore demands that you surrender the stolen royal property immediately. He says you have 1 minute to comply or he will destroy your ship. Stolen property? Ben Cooper growled from his security station. He's talking about you like you're a thing, not a person. To him, I am just a tool for gaining power, the princess said sadly. He needs my royal bloodline to legitimize his claim to the throne. Jake activated the communication system. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel Horizon's Edge. Princess Zarathiel is under our protection as a refugee seeking asylum. We will not surrender her to you. When Zarathiel translated his words, the response was immediate and angry. The prince's voice rose in pitch, becoming more threatening. He says you are insects who dare to interfere with the business of gods, Zarathiel reported. He gives you one final chance to surrender me, or he will turn your ship into space dust. Tell him to go to hell, Jake said firmly. I don't think that will translate well, Zarathiel said with a slight smile despite the danger. Tell him no, Jake amended. The princess spoke into the communicator, her voice regal and proud. Whatever she said made the prince even angrier. The connection cut off abruptly. What did you tell him? Jake asked. I told him that I would rather die free among honorable humans than live as his slave, she said. Incoming fire, Lisa shouted. From her station. The first energy blast lit up the space around them. Jake threw himself and Zarathiel to the deck as the ship shook violently. The Veltar weapons were incredibly powerful, but the shot had been a warning, deliberately missing them by a few hundred meters. Get us into the asteroid field, Jake ordered Kate. Use the rocks for cover. Sir, that's going to be dangerous flying, the navigator warned. Less dangerous than staying here, Jake replied. The Horizon's Edge dove toward a nearby cluster of asteroids, weaving between the floating rocks as energy blasts exploded around them. The Veltar ships followed, but their massive size made it harder for them to navigate the tight spaces. They're having trouble following us, Amy reported. The big ships can't maneuver as well in here. Good, Jake said. That gives us a small advantage. Princess Zarathiel pulled herself up from the deck. Captain, there is something you should know about Prince Kethmore's plans. This is not just about forcing me to marry him. What do you mean? Jake asked while dodging another energy blast. I discovered that he intends to use our marriage ceremony to poison the other royal family members who attend. He wants to eliminate all potential rivals to the throne in one night. Mass murder, Ryan said with disgust. If he succeeds, he will become the absolute ruler of the Veltar Empire, Zarathiel continued. He plans to use our military to conquer neighboring systems and build a galactic empire. Starting with human space? Jake asked. Eventually, yes. He sees humans as a threat because you advance so quickly. He wants to destroy you before you become too powerful. Jake felt cold anger building in his chest. Not only was this prince trying to force an innocent woman into marriage, he was also planning genocide on multiple levels. Tony, he called to, the chief engineer over the intercom. I need you and the princess to work together. Can her knowledge of Veltar technology help us fight these ships? I'm already on my way to engineering, Zarathiel said. I know their weaknesses. She ran from the bridge with Tony Martinez close behind. In the engineering section, she quickly identified the problems they faced. Veltar bioships can repair themselves, she explained as Tony listened carefully. But their organic hulls are vulnerable to certain energy frequencies that disrupt their cellular structure. Can we modify our weapons to use those frequencies? Tony asked. Yes, but it will take time, and you will need to hit them in specific places where the bioarmor is thinnest. They worked frantically while the ship continued dodging through the asteroid field. Kate's flying skills were being pushed to the limit as she threaded the needle between rocks while enemy fire exploded around them. There! Zarathiel pointed to a diagram on Tony's screen. The bioships have nerve clusters here and here. If you can disrupt these points with the right frequency, you can paralyze their weapons and engines. Like hitting pressure points on a human body, Tony said with understanding. Exactly. It took them an hour to modify the ship's weapon systems. During that time, the Veltar ships had managed to damage the Horizon's Edge several times. The shields were failing and they had lost 2 of their engine pods. Weapons modification complete, Tony reported to the bridge. Good, Jake said. Because we're running out of places to hide. The smallest Veltar ship had separated from the group and was hunting them through the asteroids. It was faster than the others and could follow them into tighter spaces. There's our target, Jake said grimly. All weapons focus on the nerve clusters the princess identified. The Horizon's Edge spun around a large asteroid and came face to face with the pursuing warship. Both ships fired at the same time. The Veltar energy blast punched through their remaining shields and tore a hole in the hull. But their modified weapon struck true, hitting the bioship's nerve clusters with precisely tuned energy. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The alien ship convulsed like a living thing in pain, its weapons going silent, and its movement becoming erratic. It worked, Lisa shouted. Their ship is disabled. 1 down, 2 to go, Jake said. But the victory came at a cost. The damage to Horizon's Edge was severe. They were bleeding air and power, and their engine performance was dropping rapidly. Captain, Ben reported, I'm reading life pods launching from the disabled ship. Some of them are heading for the larger vessels, but others are coming toward us. They're trying to board us, Jake realized. Princess Zarathiel's voice came over the intercom from engineering. Captain, Prince Cathamor will try to take me alive if possible. He still needs me for his political plans. Then we'll make sure he doesn't get you, Jake replied. The boarding pods attached to their hull with metallic clangs that echoed through the ship. Ben and his security team took positions at the airlocks ready to repel boarders. Remember, Jake announced to the crew, we're not just fighting for our own lives. We're fighting to prevent a genocide and to protect someone who has become family to us. As the alien soldiers began cutting through their airlocks, Jake looked at the tactical display. 2 massive warships were still out there, and his own ship was badly damaged. The odds were impossible. But Jake Morrison had learned something important about humans during his years in space. They were at their best when the odds were impossible. That's when they fought hardest, thought most clearly, and refused to give up. All hands, he announced over the ship's communication system. Prepare to repel boarders. Show these aliens what humans do when someone threatens our family. The battle for the Horizon's Edge was about to begin, and Jake knew that everything they had learned about courage, loyalty, and sacrifice would be tested in the next few hours. In engineering, Princess Zarathiel worked frantically to give them every possible advantage while on the bridge. Jake prepared to make decisions that would determine not just their survival, but the future relationship between humans and the Veltar Empire. The sound of energy weapons began echoing through the corridors as Ben's security team engaged the boarding party. The real fight had just started. The Veltar soldiers were unlike anything the human crew had ever faced. They moved through the corridors of Horizon's Edge like liquid metal, their armor shifting and adapting to deflect the humans' energy weapons. Ben Cooper and his security team fought bravely, but they were being pushed back toward the bridge. "They're not trying to kill us," Ben reported over his communicator. "They're using stun weapons. They want us alive." "Probably as hostages," Jake replied from the bridge. Princess Zarathiel's voice crackled over the intercom from engineering. "Captain, I have an idea, but you're not going to like it." "I'm listening," Jake said while watching the tactical display show more boarding pods attaching to their hull. "According to ancient Veltar law, I can challenge Prince Kethmore to single combat. If I win, I become free to choose my own path. If I lose—" She paused. "If you lose, you're dead," Jake finished grimly. "Better than being forced into marriage with a murderer," she replied. "And it would save your crew." "Absolutely not," Jake said immediately. "We're not sacrificing you." "Jake," she said, using his first name for the first time. "This is the only way to end this without everyone dying." The bridge shook as more Veltar soldiers cut through the outer airlocks. Lisa Park was frantically trying to get the ship's weapons back online while Kate worked to keep them positioned behind a large asteroid for cover. "Even if we agreed to this crazy plan," Jake said, "what makes you think he'll honor ancient laws?" "Because other Veltar nobles are watching," Zarathiel explained. "If he refuses a formal challenge or cheats, he'll lose their support. His whole plan depends on being seen as the legitimate ruler." Ben's voice came over the comm again, strained with effort. "Captain, we can't hold them much longer. They've taken Deck 3 and they're moving toward engineering." Jake made a decision that went against every instinct he had. "Princess, make your challenge, but we're not leaving you to face this alone." "What do you mean?" she asked. "Human tactics," Jake said with a grim smile. "If he wants to follow ancient laws, we'll make sure he follows all of them." 20 minutes later, an uneasy ceasefire filled the ship. The Veltar soldiers had stopped their advance when Princess Zarathiel broadcasted her formal challenge throughout the ship and to the warships outside. Prince Kethmore's response came quickly. His image appeared on the main screen, and Jake got his first look at the man who wanted to marry the princess by force. Kethmore was tall and imposing, with skin that gleamed like dark metal and eyes like burning coals. His voice was cold and confident when he spoke. "The runaway princess thinks to delay her fate with ancient ceremonies," he said in heavily accented English. "Very well. I accept your challenge, Zarathiel. When I defeat you, your death will serve as an example to others who think to defy me. The combat will take place on neutral ground," Zarathiel replied formally. "Choose an asteroid where all can witness." "Agreed. 1 hour from now." His image disappeared. Jake immediately called a meeting in the ship's conference room. The senior staff gathered around the table while Princess Zarathiel stood at the head, looking small but determined. "This is insane," Dr. Ryan Clark said bluntly. "He's a trained warrior and probably twice your size." "I have some advantages," Zarathiel said quietly. "And I've been learning from all of you." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "Ben has been teaching me human fighting techniques," she said. "Ryan has been showing me how human medicine works. Tony has been explaining your engineering principles. I want to use everything I've learned." "It's still a huge risk," Lisa said. "Everything is a risk now," the princess replied. "But this way, at least your crew has a chance to survive." Jake stood up and walked to the view screen, staring out at the Veltar warships. "What if we don't just let you face him alone? What if we stack the deck in your favor?" "What are you thinking?" Ben asked. "Ancient combat laws usually have rules about equipment and preparation," Jake said. "If we're playing by Veltar rules, we need to know exactly what those rules are." Zarathiel tilted her head thoughtfully. Traditional combat allows each fighter to bring their own weapons and wear their own armor. Seconds are permitted to attend to the fighters between rounds. Seconds? Tony asked. Assistants, usually family members or close allies. Then we're your seconds, Jake said firmly. All of us. You would do that? She asked, surprised. You're part of this crew, Amy said. We don't abandon crew members. Over the next hour, they prepared for the most important fight of their lives. Ben taught Zarathiel more human combat techniques, focusing on speed and agility over strength. Ryan prepared medical supplies and stimulants that could help her recover between rounds. Tony worked on modifying some of their equipment to give her every possible advantage. Remember, Ben told her as they suited up, he's going to expect you to fight like a Veltar noble. Use human tactics instead, be unpredictable. Hit and run, she said, practicing the moves he had shown her. Use his size against him. Exactly. The chosen asteroid was large enough to provide a proper fighting arena. Both crews transported to the surface, which had been artificially provided. With breathable atmosphere using Veltar technology, Jake was amazed to see other Veltar ships arriving to witness the combat. Word has spread, Zarathiel explained. This challenge has become very important politically. Prince Kethmore arrived with great ceremony, wearing elaborate armor that looked like it was made from the same biometal as his ships. He carried weapons that hummed with energy and seemed to shift shape as he moved. You have made your last mistake, little princess, he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. When this is over, I will hunt down every human who helped you and make them pay for their interference. First, you have to beat me, Zarathiel replied calmly. She wore modified human armor that Tony had adapted with Veltar technology. It was lighter and more flexible than Kethmore's, designed for speed rather than protection. Her weapons were a combination of human and Veltar designs that no one had ever seen before. The formal rules were announced by an elderly Veltar noble who served as judge. The combat would continue until one fighter yielded or died. The use of any equipment was allowed, and seconds could provide assistance between rounds. Begin, the judge called. Prince Kethmore attacked immediately, moving faster than Jake had expected. His first strike would have killed Zarathiel if she hadn't dodged using the human techniques Ben had taught her. Instead of meeting his strength head-on, like a traditional Veltar fighter, she rolled aside and struck at his knee joint. The crowd of watching Veltar nobles murmured in surprise. This was not how royal combat usually went. Kethmore roared in anger and swung his massive weapon in a wide arc. Again, Zarathiel didn't try to block it. She ducked under the swing and used his momentum against him, striking at weak points in his armor that she had learned about from studying human engineering principles. She's making him angry, Ben observed from the sidelines. That's good. Angry fighters make mistakes. The first round ended when both fighters separated to rest. Jake and his crew immediately surrounded Zarathiel, checking her injuries and giving her water and medicine. You're doing great, Jake told her. He's already breathing hard. His armor is heavier than it looks, she said, wiping purple blood from a cut on her cheek. If I can make him chase me long enough, he'll get tired. Use the environment, Kate suggested. Make him fight on ground that favors you. The second round was longer and more brutal. Kethmore had learned to expect her, human-style tactics, and adapted his fighting accordingly. But Zarathiel had also been learning. She used the rocky terrain of the asteroid to her advantage, leading him into areas where his larger size worked against him. By the third round, both fighters were showing serious damage. Kethmore's superior strength had managed to land several hits, but Zarathiel's speed and unconventional tactics had frustrated his attempts to end the fight quickly. This is taking too long, Ryan said during a break between rounds. She's losing too much blood. I have one more trick, Zarathiel said quietly. Something I learned from watching how humans work together. What do you mean? Jake asked. You'll see, she said with a weak smile. The fourth round began with Kethmore pressing his advantage. He had figured out that he needed to corner her and use his strength to overpower her quickly. He drove her back against a rock formation, raising his weapon for what looked like a killing blow. But Zarathiel had been leading him exactly where she wanted him. As his weapon came down, she triggered a small explosive device that Tony had hidden in the rocks. The blast didn't hurt either fighter directly, but it brought down part of the rock formation on top of Kethmore. "That's cheating," one of his supporters shouted. "No," the elderly judge said firmly. "The rules allow any equipment." She prepared the battlefield in advance, which shows excellent tactical thinking. Kethmore struggled out from under the rocks, his armor dented and his confidence shaken. For the first time, he looked at Zarathiel with something approaching respect. "You have learned much from these humans," he said. "I've learned what it means to be free," she replied. The final exchange was swift and decisive. Kethmore, desperate and angry, made one last powerful attack. But Zarathiel was ready for it. Using everything Ben had taught her about human fighting techniques, everything Ryan had shown her, Princess Zarathiel stood victorious on the asteroid, but her triumph was short-lived. As the formal ceremonies concluded, several of Prince Kethmore's military supporters refused to accept the outcome. This combat was tainted by alien interference, shouted Commander Velthrak, the highest-ranking military officer among Kethmore's faction. "The princess used human weapons and tactics. This violates the spirit of traditional combat." The elderly judge shook his head firmly. The rules were clear. Any equipment was permitted. The princess fought honorably and won fairly. But Velthrak wasn't listening to reason. Jake could see the dangerous look in the commander's burning red eyes. This wasn't about honor or tradition anymore. It was about power, and some people would rather destroy everything than lose it. "All ships loyal to the true Veltar way, prepare to cleanse this dishonor," Velthrak commanded into his communicator. "He's calling for an attack," Zarathiel translated urgently. "His ships are going to destroy everyone here, including the nobles who witnessed my victory." Jake immediately activated his own communicator. "All hands prepare for emergency evacuation. We need to get back to the ship now." But they were too far from their shuttle, and Velthrak's ships were already powering up their weapons. The situation looked hopeless until something unexpected happened. 3 of the Veltar warships that had come to witness the combat suddenly moved between Velthrak's forces and the asteroid. Their weapons powered up, but they were aimed at their own people. "What's happening?" Jake asked. "Admiral Zorathana is intervening," Zarathiel said with surprise and relief. "She was my father's most trusted commander. She's protecting us." The space around the asteroid erupted into chaos as Veltar fought against Veltar. Admiral Zorthana's ships engaged Velthrak's forces in a battle that lit up the darkness with energy blasts and explosions. "We need to help them," Jake said, but Zarathiel shook her head. "Our ship is too damaged to make a difference in that fight," she said. "But there is something else we can do." She led Jake and his crew to a communication station that the Veltar had set up on the asteroid. Her fingers moved quickly over the bioorganic controls. "I'm broadcasting to all Veltar ships and colonies," she explained. "It's time they learned the truth about what Kethmore was planning." Her voice rang out across Veltar space, speaking in her own language, but with a strength and authority that needed no translation. She told them about Kethmore's plot to murder the royal families, his plans to conquer human space, and his willingness to destroy anyone who opposed him. The effect was immediate and dramatic. More Veltar ships began switching sides, turning their weapons on Velthrak's remaining forces. The commander found himself outnumbered and surrounded. "This is not over." Velthrak's voice crackled over the communication system. "The Veltar. Empire will never bow to humans or those who consort with them." His ship made one final, desperate attack, run toward the asteroid where Jake and Zarathiel stood. Its massive weapons charged up for a blast that would kill everyone on the surface. But Horizon's Edge, damaged and limping, positioned itself between the asteroid and the attacking ship. Captain Jake Morrison and his crew were willing to sacrifice themselves to protect the princess and the Veltar nobles who had supported her. The enemy ship fired. The energy blast struck Horizon's Edge directly, and for a moment, Jake thought they were all going to die. But Admiral Zorthana's flagship fired at the same instant, destroying Velthrak's ship before it could deliver a killing blow. Horizon's Edge survived, barely. The ship was so damaged that it could barely maintain life support, but they were alive. In the days that followed, Princess Zarathiel was formally crowned as the new ruler of the Veltar Empire. Her first acts as empress surprised everyone, including many of her own people. She established a council of representatives from different social classes, giving common Veltar a voice in government for the first time in their history. She opened diplomatic relations with Earth and invited human advisors to help modernize Veltar society. Most importantly, she created new laws protecting individual choice and ending forced marriages throughout the empire. "You have changed everything," Admiral Zorthana told her during the coronation ceremony. "Some of our people will resist these reforms." "Change is never easy," Zarathiel replied. "But I have learned from the humans that growth requires courage. We cannot remain the same forever." Jake and his crew were honored guests at the ceremony. They had been offered new ships to replace their damaged vessel, along with positions as the first human ambassadors to the Veltar Empire. "What do you think?" Jake asked his crew as they discussed the offer. "It's a chance to build something completely new," Lisa said. "First contact between our species." "The science exchange alone would advance human knowledge by decades," Ryan added. "And someone needs to make sure the the Empress, stays safe," Ben said with a grin. Jake found himself walking in the palace gardens with Zarathiel after the ceremony. She wore the traditional robes of a Veltar ruler, but she had insisted on keeping some human customs as well. The combination of both cultures suited her perfectly. "I have a proposal for you," she said as they stopped beside a fountain that sang with musical water. "What kind of proposal?" Jake asked. "I want you to become our first human ambassador," she said, "but not just as a political appointment. I want you to help me build a bridge between our peoples." "That's a big responsibility," Jake said. "Yes, it is, but I cannot think of anyone better suited for it." She turned to face him fully. "Jake Morrison, you and your crew saved my life, but more than that, you taught me what it means to be free. You showed me that duty and choice don't have to be enemies." "You figured that out on your own," Jake said. "We just gave you the chance to see it. Will you stay?" she asked quietly. "Will you help me build this new future?" Jake looked into her purple eyes, the same eyes that had captivated him when they first rescued her from the damaged ship, but now he saw something different in them. Not just beauty, but wisdom and strength and hope for something better. "I'll stay," he said. "We all will." 6 months later, the first joint human Veltar exploration mission launched from the new embassy, station that had been built at the edge of both empires. Captain Jake Morrison commanded the expedition ship Unity, with a crew that included both humans and Veltar working together as equals. Empress Zarathiel stood in the observation deck of the embassy station, watching the ship depart for unexplored regions of the galaxy. Beside her, Admiral Zorthana and several human diplomats discussed plans for the next phase of cooperation between their species. "Do you think they will find anything interesting out there?" the Admiral asked. "With Jake leading them, I'm sure they will," Zarathiel replied with a smile. "Humans have a gift for finding wonders in the most unexpected places." As the Unity disappeared into hyperspace, the Empress reflected on how much had changed since that day when her damaged ship had drifted helplessly in space. She had been running from an unwanted fate, but instead she had found something she never expected: a family among the stars, and a love that transcended species. The future was uncertain, but it was a future they would build together. Humans and Veltar, working side by side to explore the galaxy and create something better than either species could achieve alone. In the vast emptiness of space, the Unity continued its journey toward the unknown. In the captain's quarters, Jake Morrison kept a small photo on his desk: the crew of Horizon's Edge and Empress Zarathiel, taken on the day she was crowned. They were all smiling, and they looked like what they had become: a family that had chosen each other across the darkness between worlds. The inscription on the back of the photo, written in both English and Veltar script, read simply, "She's the most splendid princess I've ever seen," and she turned to me. But now she was so much more than a princess. She was an empress, a friend, a bridge between worlds, and the beginning of a new chapter in galactic history. The age of cooperation between humans and aliens had begun, and it had started with one simple act of kindness when a starship captain decided to help someone who needed it. In the end, that's what humans did best. They saw someone in trouble, and they helped. Even when it was dangerous, even when it was impossible, even when it changed the entire galaxy. That was the human way. And now, it was becoming the Veltar way too. The story of Jake Morrison and Princess Zarathiel had ended, but the story of what they built together was just beginning.